Well, good evening, councillors. Thank you very much for your time and for giving me a slot at what is a very busy meeting. I'm here on behalf and as of the independent chair of the Democracy Commission, which has been set up by councillors and officers of Kirklees Council, and which is currently ongoing. And I think in many ways that it's an opportune time to come and talk to you all and give an idea not only about what the Commission is about, but also about the progress we're making already. And I think in many senses what's driving this idea, and I think that the Kirklees Council needs to be congratulated not only for the proactive approach to what they're doing, but also the sense in which there is a need to consult with a wide range of citizens and stakeholders across Kirklees and around the rest of the country, is that it's part of your process about looking at the new council and the way in which Kirklees Council has got a reputation for taking a lead and reading the runes correctly. And I think in many senses that the Democracy Commission, which has been set up and which I was approached to chair, is a response to more long-term concerns over lower turnout in local elections particularly. The average is about a third of the electorate turns out in local elections in England, but in a wider sense, even if we look at the European Union referendum, that there was a sense in which, although large numbers turned out, only 72% of the population turned out, as compared to, say, 85% in Scotland for the referendum there. On the other side of that, there is a prevailing narrative that lots of citizens complain that they don't feel that they're being represented by their elected representatives or by the institutions that they represent. There is a contradiction with that, and I think that it's interesting that local councillors, when you look at political trust, and you look at levels of political trust, local councillors usually come out top by some significance. So there seems to be a contradiction in the preparedness of people to vote and their preparedness to then express trust in their local councillors. And in many ways, the Democracy Commission is looking at that tension between the two. It's also this wider problem, which of course is facing Kirklees and other councils, which is of course in a time where there is cuts to funding and austerity. It's meaning that you're being asked to do the same with less, and that means often making difficult choices, and in many senses citizens feel that they need to be part of that process into making, and the Democracy Commission is going to look at that. Similarly, there is the notion that we are asking our citizens to do more. It's quite strange to try and evoke David Cameron now. Not only the former Prime Minister, he's a former politician, but the notion of the big society was widely derided, but it's actually something which all political parties in some sense buy into, the idea that citizens and communities do more. That redefines that sense of the relationship between local government and its citizens. And I think in many ways the Democracy Commission is wanting to look at that changing representation, and also the role in which new forms of political participation, particularly online digital forms of political participation, offer new opportunities for you as elected representatives to engage and interact with your citizens. In the backdrop of all this, and it's interesting that I came in, obviously, as you were talking about devolution and the notion about what it means for West Yorkshire, is the idea that, well, devolution isn't only the transfer of power from Westminster, i.e. the power has been brought downwards, but it is also, in some cases, the notion that local authorities are going to be passing power and decision-making upwards to new combined authorities. That is going to have implications, is already having implications for your role as councillors and that relationship between you and your citizens. And on all those points, I think that Kirklees Council is asking the right questions at the right time. The European Union referendum has energised the country politically. What's happening with Huddersfield Royal Infirmary and other things is also bringing greater community engagement. We're living in a very exceptional period of time, and I think that Kirklees is ahead of the game. We've been talking to Local Government Association and various other bodies down in London and elsewhere, and the comprehensive response has been Kirklees is ahead of the game in having this commission. And so I congratulate the Commission for it. This is the statement, the mission statement that has been established by Kirklees Council. It is aspirational, rightly aspirational, and it is something which is also progressive. It is something which by 2020, the notion of an informed citizen-led democracy led by accountable elected representatives, it encapsulates in many ways a sense about how we would like democracy to work in a local context. And I think that we realise as a Commission that that is a laudable aspiration, but at the same time, it is also something which is going to take a lot to achieve. We do believe that it is worth that trying. The three themes of the Commission are, first, to look at the role of councillors in the representative and participatory democracy. How do you represent your constituents? How do you interact with more active participative citizens? How do you network in different ways? Elections and election cycle, looking at the various permutations. There are clearly changes afoot at Westminster. We've all seen the Boundary Commission changes this week. There are questions around what different councils are responding to in terms of local elections, and also in decision-making, governance, accountability. How do we bring citizens into that process? How do they feel that they've got a part of that? The critical issue, and one of the things that's come out, of course, when we've been engaging with citizens, is this idea, well, we only see politicians at election time. How do you break that mindset and have that sense in which this is a constant bilateral dialogue? So the timeline of the Commission is, well, during July and August, we held a number of democracy events around various parts of Kirklees, talking to local citizens. We've also been engaging online with citizens through your wonderful e-panel, which is a wonderful resource in itself. And during September and October, we're holding a range of public inquiries where we're meeting leading figures from across the United Kingdom, both at Westminster and in local government, and also with yourselves as political groups. And I think one of the things which has been heartily encouraging is that the commissioners, councillors that have been on the Democracy Commission have come from all four party groups, have bought into this, and I truly hope that you do too. It is very much in the spirit of what I believe Kirklees Council is about. October and November we go away and we're going to write up the report. We're going to try and aggregate all the ideas that we've captured from the different people we've been interacting. We will then come and report to yourselves. And at that point, there will be a much wider conversation about the implications of the Commission itself. That will then go forward to recommendations which you, the Council, will consider. These recommendations will also go nationwide, and there is a huge number of stakeholders that are very keen to look at the findings of this Commission. It has created an enormous interest in what's happening in Kirklees. And for that, as someone that is not part of your institution but is clearly defined by it, I congratulate you for buying into this. It is a very laudable project. That is my slightly over 5 minutes.
Andrew, I'm amazed. The number of times I've heard you speak, that's the quickest I've ever heard you.
You know me well, too well.